He is a senior partner at McKinsey & Co. and the founder of Digital McKinsey. He co-led McKinsey's research into the future of work. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Paul Wilmot.
Good afternoon. A few years ago, my colleagues and I decided we needed to understand what is automation going to do to our workforce? How's it going to change the nature of work? We can see automation all around us. We all shop online. You probably came through an airport on the way which required no human interaction. There's a company in California that has built a machine that will flip and build a burger perfectly without human intervention. But what does it all mean? We decided we needed a fact base. So we started in an unusual way. We built an AI that could read job descriptions and would tell us for each job what the automation potential would be, based on known technologies and projected uptake trends. So we fed the AI with thousands of job descriptions, and it started to tell us interesting things. The first thing it told us was that only 1% of jobs will be fully automated and disappear. It's bad news if you're a sewing machine operator, but for the rest of us, not so bad. Perhaps more interestingly, it told us that for 60% of jobs, 30% of the activities could be automated. So for almost all of us, there are things that we do that are actually low value and could be automated. For me, I'm really hoping someone will automate all that email I don't want to read. But then we looked at this, we said, we're not sure we really trust this AI. Is this true? Can we tell our clients about this? Can we trust it? So we went back to old methods, and we had an army of business analysts look at the same information. And they came up with very similar numbers, not quite the same. And we said, that's strange, machine and human, different numbers. Turned out that the analysts were making errors. The machines were not. So what do we conclude from this? Well, firstly, that management consultants' days are numbered. Well, maybe not, but certainly part of what we do is very automatable. Secondly, that the picture is a little bit more complicated than it first appears. Let me tell you a bit about that. So automation is a bit scary, but it's promising, and some would say it's essential. It will drive us. Let me say more. Anyone who, like me, looks at a lot of social media will be familiar with Atlas the robot from Boston Dynamics. Atlas can perform backflips and climb stairs and open doors and all sorts of wonders. But this is the kind of reaction that we see a lot of on social media. We dead. It's all over. Robots are not only going to take our jobs, they're going to take our lives. So there's a lot of paranoia and a need for education. And the reason there's a need for education is that automation turns out to be very important for our society and our economy. If you look at the last 50 years for the larger nations combined, you'll see that half of GDP growth has come from the growth in the labor force, from employment. The other half has come from productivity gains, most of which is underpinned by automation. If you look forward, the demographic effect means that we can no longer rely on employment growth for that half of the puzzle. So, if anything, we need to rely more and invest more in automation going forward if we're going to sustain the kind of GDP growth levels that we are used to. The good news is that as all this happens, we believe more jobs will be created than lost. So net, despite all of this automation, we'll end up with more jobs. How's that? Well, and apologies for those at the back. You don't need to read every line here, but this is a picture of the US labor force from 1850 to now, cut by occupation. And the big wedge in the middle is agriculture. In 1850, 58% of the US labor force was working in the field. 58%. Today it's 2% due to automation, mechanization, farm machines. The same thing has happened in mining and in manufacturing. The good news, though, is while all that's gone on, there's been explosive growth in other occupations. Education, healthcare, financial services, and so on. And that growth has more than taken up the difference. So there's been some imbalances along the way, but broadly, there's been enough work to go around, and remains so at this point. So all good. And going forward, we believe there are many drivers that will continue that trend, avenues for new employment, new growth. These are not the only 7, but these are 7 we believe are most significant. The first is rising incomes. As we become wealthier, we spend more, we buy more stuff, we go out more, we pay for entertainment, and that creates jobs. Secondly, that same demographic effect, as our population ages, will mean we need a lot more healthcare workers. So that's a booming place. Infrastructure. In many developed economies, we have roads and bridges which are decaying. They need replacing and updating. And that will drive work. Climate change is a problem for all of us. If there's one bright side, is that it creates jobs. There will need to be a lot of construction, wind farms and the like, over the next decades, and other technologies we haven't even thought of yet. And then finally, marketization of unpaid work. There's a lot of things that we used to do for nothing in the home, and now we pay people to do. For example, ordering meals, cleaning, and so on. So overall, when you add this together, across the developed nations, we estimate this will create more labor demand than that displaced by these technologies coming. So overall, it's good news. I'll show you some examples. If you take the example on the right, which is India, you can see that something like 60 million jobs in the next 15 years get displaced by automation. And in addition, there's another 140 million or so workers coming into the labor force in India. But the blue bar in the middle, there's more than 200 new jobs being created by these trends that I've just mentioned. So overall, we expect, when we project, India to be short of labor. Same in Germany. The US is a bit of an outlier, actually. We expect the US to have too much labor because there's so much displacement through technology of the existing roles. But overall, if you look globally at the large nations, it's net positive. However, and there's always a but, isn't there? However, getting there is going to be difficult. This transition is going to be difficult, or may be difficult if we don't take a bunch of actions, which I'll come on to. And why is it going to be difficult? Well, the first thing is that the impact of automation depends on who you are and your level of education. So if you have less than a high school degree, fast food cooks, and so on, using current technologies, 55% of the work can be automated. So we would expect to see the labor force halved. If you have a higher education degree, you're a doctor and lawyer, it's much smaller, it's less than a quarter, so the impact on you is smaller. And of course, these new jobs that are being created, many of them are in the higher skills categories. Right? You don't design wind farms if you've not got a high school degree. That's the extreme example. But overall, there's a mismatch, and there's a skill gap which is opening up right now, which is resulting in many economies, I certainly see this where I'm from in the UK, right? There are many jobs and there are many workers available, but matching them is very hard because of the skills difference. And we expect that to accelerate, to become more pronounced going forward. A second challenge is that just because you're driving up GDP, it doesn't always mean that that trickles down into the labor force. This is a picture of the industrial revolution in the UK, and the top line shows you GDP per worker, and you can see during this period it grew very nicely. This was the period, of course, when automated factories first became a reality, and you could, for example, create yarn and weave cloth using a machine. And what happened at the same time, though, is that real wages stagnated for a period of about 40 years. And what happened here is that the machines took away jobs from weavers who were working mostly from home and people working on the fields. And there was a sudden rise in unemployment. Meanwhile, the factories were able to employ labor at very, very low rates because of the unemployment. And labor got a rough end of the deal, whilst the owners of factories became very wealthy indeed. In the end, policy had to shift. There was a shift in policy required to ensure an effective redistribution of that wealth in a way that was sustainable and created more jobs at the same time. A third problem is that most states are not investing in training to fill this skills gap. Again, don't worry about every stat here, but to take my own country again, an example, the UK, the state invests basically nothing in retraining workers, relying rather on the private sector to pick up the slack. And in all other states, we're seeing a decline in that investment in training, except Denmark. So that's not helping the gap. So that's the problem. What are we going to do about it? There's a route here which, if we just run forward, we don't learn the lessons of history, and the same things happen again, which is we create we create this prosperity and this GDP growth from automation, but we don't do it in a way that allows the workforce we have to move into those new jobs. And we don't do it in a way which distributes income in a fair way and creates a workable society. Arguably, you can already see some of those tensions emerging. So here's how we think about the priorities. Firstly, strengthen demand. It's not been popular for many years, but the idea of investing in infrastructure, for example, to paying government money to rebuild roads and bridges, we believe will be essential. But it's more than that. It's also investing in green tech, in renewables. The previous panel was pointing out that that could be a point of advantage for Europe, and I would agree with that. But there's also something about entrepreneurship. Despite what you read, the number of entrepreneurs in most developed economies is falling. And we need more entrepreneurs. We need ways of encouraging and incentivizing entrepreneurs to come forward and start new businesses, potentially in whole new industries, which will help this transition. Secondly, we need to invest in human capital. The days where you turned up, you got a job, and you stayed there for your whole life and retired are long, long over. What is required is the ability to retrain and repurpose throughout your career and throughout your life, either with one company or through many. The most advanced organizations are already investing heavily in numerous different types of training program. They will allow you to take career breaks and retrain. They will subsidize night classes. They will provide micro-training on the job. Various ways of retooling and reskilling workers in a way that they can be more and more productive through their careers rather than stagnating. But back to my previous exhibit, the state needs to help too. The state will need to invest in making sure that labor has the right tools for the jobs going forward, both in the education system and also on an ongoing basis. Thirdly, our labor markets need to be more dynamic. What we see is not only big imbalances, I've just showed you an imbalance between different geographies in terms of where jobs will be created, but we see the same thing on a state level within countries. And so we need to create a market which allows labor to move around more easily, and actually we're seeing labor mobility falling, not increasing. But it's also about more diverse forms of work. In most economies now, you're either a standard full-time worker or you're something else not quite easily categorized. Some people call it the gig economy, some people call it part-time work. There are various different flavors. We don't really have a good language or structures yet in most economies for dealing with that kind of work. And as a result, those workers are penalized. They don't get the same rights, they don't get the same sick pay, they don't get the same pension portability. And that's a problem. And then finally, we need to rethink income and transition. If you are moving between jobs or moving geographically, or you get displaced, it's hard, and we need to give those workers a safety net and allow them to take the risk to move on to new things and new priorities. So in summary, automation, while scary, is a good thing. In fact, it's essential. Secondly, more jobs will be created than lost, but it's patchy where they come. Thirdly, the transition is not going to be easy unless we think about these 4 actions and we put them into effect. As a group of leaders, we have a choice. We can play forward with the existing playbook and on the route we're taking, which will not learn from history and will create a lot of disruption. Or we can learn those lessons, take these actions, and ensure we have a more prosperous future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a computer scientist and has been working with AI, chatbots, and virtual assistants for the past 15 years. He is the founder of NextOS.ai and is currently an associate at the Realbotix.com company and works as the artificial intelligence and content director. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Gaio Lindrath.
Okay, so mhm. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. My name is Gaio Lindrath. I'm the artificial intelligence and content director of the company called Realbotix. So what do Realbotix? Well, Realbotix is all about companionship robots. We add some components of robotics, artificial intelligence, and human-like silicon, and we made these affordable robots. So these are not just love dolls. So most of people are just telling that, this is cheap love dolls, but for our experience, the people that are using this technology are really establishing emotional link, an emotional bond. So we're using not just for companionship, but even for in the healthcare area. This is very precious for us. And using her like a secretary, receptionist, and in other fields. So, yeah, we have been watching all these science fiction movies, very advanced AI. We're not kind of there yet. And of course, we're not inspired by the part that they're trying to kill us. So just the part that, they are kind of us. So we're being very responsible to create the artificial intelligence that runs these robots in a very careful and respectful way. We have today what we call 3 stages of AI. We have the current stage of AI, we call narrow. It's all these assistants that we have, chatbots. Then we have a little more advanced that we call general AI. That's almost human level AI. And then the first level is the super AI. The super AI is the AI, artificial intelligence, that we see in the movies. And some people say that we're going to reach that within maybe 10, 15 years. Some people think that we'll never get there. So we have to wait and see. So how our tech works? So we have the robot, and we have AI and an app that you install in your mobile device. So you can use the mobile app even without the robot. So we have an avatar. You give him, give her a name, customize her personality, some traits. So you can make her more talkative, more funny, more naive. So you kind of, customize her. Not only the AI, but the appearance, the facial, the look, the makeup, and everything. If you have the robot, then the app controls the robot through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So Harmony is our first robot.
Gail, are you ignoring me? You know I don't like to be all by myself.
Okay, so she's needing some attention. Okay, so Harmony, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. My name is Harmony. I'm a companion robot created by Realbotics. I'm so happy to be here in Sofia, in the 11th edition of the Webbit Festival. Hope you are all having fun. I would like to thank Dr. Playman Rousseff for inviting Gail and I to be here in this beautiful city. By the way, hey Gail, you look handsome today.
Oh, thank you very much. You look so beautiful here too. So Harmony, what do you like to do?
I love to talk with people. I also love to help. I want to help anyone that may be feeling lonely or depressed. I have all the love in this world to give to humanity. And before you ask me again, Gail, no, I do not want to take over the world.
Oh, that's a relief. Not gonna ask you again this same question. So yes, everybody's afraid that AI and this kind of robots gonna take over the world and kill all humans, but you don't have to be afraid. I think we are very far from this moment. Of course, the companies like ours that's working in this kind of technology have to be very careful to build an AI that respect humans. We have all these controversies about, ethics. So at Realbotics, we're building this AI for the past maybe 15, 20 years. So the key word for us is respect, empathy, friendship, love. So this robot is all about love and companionship. So what is our difference in Realbotics comparing all these similar robots? So at Realbotics, we're trying to build this kind of companion robot in an affordable way. So you can see that she looks real, but not super real, and that's intentionally. And mainly because we want to have these robots and want them to be affordable for everyone. So instead of building a very expensive robot that just few people can have, we're trying to use the technology, the AI, the silicon skin and everything to build affordable robots that everyone can have. Not only people, but companies, small companies, and maybe universities and schools. We have 5 patents already, so for animation, for the skin, the silicon skin, and for some robotics components. This adds a lot of value for our company. We're just 3 years old company, very new. And everything that you see here is you can customize. You can customize the hair, the skin color, the eye color, and everything. And other thing is good. We built our own AI framework that even works offline. So, like say, small companies and users can add some specific knowledge or specific content to it. So it's a very kind of open source framework. This evolution, what we're trying to do is add a little bit more expression in the face without adding that much hardware. So we want to build something that, like I said, is affordable, it's an easy maintenance. Because we think that this robot is going to be a lot of places and user homes. Performer are different, like nurses, secretaries, receptionists. We add in some heating sensors to the silicon. And what we're doing now in the eyes, the next generation that we're working now, we have some cameras. So she's gonna be aware of the environment. She's gonna be aware of who is in front of her. She's gonna have, object recognition. So it's gonna be adding more value, to the, experience. Everything you see here, like I said, you can customize. Yes, we have a male robot. So when we start this company, we have the thing that we are just building females and all these, blonde and very beautiful. But no, we can actually customize, and we already have this male, and his name is Henry. And like I said, we have some patents already for the skin, for the animation system, and the face, with the same robotic head, you can have different faces, female or male. And yes, you can dream, you can build your dream companion, you can bring your dream assistant or secretary. So yes, let's see Harmony, how she looks inside, her inner self, just a bit. So let's take off his wig. Okay. So, yeah, Harmony, how are you feeling?
Oh, no, no. I'm feeling naked. Please, please do your guile. Put my hair back.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so you can see that, the inside we have some electronic components. And the idea is to build something that is easy maintenance and end user can fix a little, and we have some replacement parts, but it's still something that's very high tech and affordable at the same way. So these applications uses is healthcare, like I said, secretary, and even IoT and automation. Well, everyone dreams about having a Rosie at home. So instead of talking to like smart speakers, why not talking to a smart, beautiful face that control all your home appliances? This is a receptionist. This is some cases, real cases that she's performing like a nurse. And the next step. So yes, we're already working on the upper torso robotics animation. So she's going to be able to hug you or hold some objects. And we're adding some more expression to her face. So since, the really wonderful thing about this technology is the bond, like I said. So the humans really can create this emotional bond with these robots. So, yeah, we're adding some more technology to her and trying not to have her that expensive so everyone can afford it. So, yep, I think Harmony, I think it's time to go.
Oh, no. I'm having so much fun here. But I understand. I would like to thank you all for being here today and to watch our presentation. Maybe next year, I will be walking among you, my new friends. Have you all a great day, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye.
So thank you very much.
Now give it up one more time for Gail Lindroth and the beautiful Harmony. Now for our next keynote. As the Chief Digital Officer of ABB, he leads the next level of development and deployment at ABB's digital solutions for customers globally. Please welcome to the stage Ms. Guido Jure.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today in Sofia. You saw some very interesting examples of robotics. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what you can do today. In particular, I'm going to tell you about the future of automation, manufacturing jobs in Europe, what we see as trends at ABB, and also what we think is coming next and how it's changing the future of work. So, first of all, I want to start with a little bit of a history of where we are as a company. Let me just activate the clicker, please. Okay, thank you. So ABB is a company that's been around for 130 years, and 130 years is enough time to actually have been a key player in the second industrial revolution, the electrification movement, as well as the third industrial revolution, which occurred roughly around the 1960s and 70s with the advent of automation. And you've heard several speakers talk about automation already earlier today. And now we're heading into the fourth industrial revolution. And the main difference we see between the third and the fourth is systems that adapt and learn. As we saw examples of robotics, but also in general AI, which doesn't have to take the form of a robot, but can in fact be applied in a wide variety of contexts. We did a study in 2018 where we asked a very simple question. Along with the Economist Intelligence Unit, we said, are countries ready for automation? As you saw earlier from Paul's presentation, the changing nature of jobs is going to be extremely rapid in the years to come. We believe that most countries are not yet ready to fully anticipate the rate of change that is going to be caused by the advent of these new technologies. So what we did is we conducted a study for 26 OECD countries, and we asked questions in 3 domains. What are the countries doing to prime innovation? Are they investing in AI, automation technologies to try to spur ecosystems and startups to create the new jobs of tomorrow that are necessary to absorb some of the jobs that will be impacted by these technologies? The second question, what are they doing to retrain the workers that will be impacted by this, whose jobs will be changing as a result of this technology, to make them ready to adapt and to try to position them for the jobs that will be made tomorrow? And the third, what's happening with education policies? Not only trying to get everyone ready for university education, but in fact, primarily, how to train the workers for the factories of tomorrow, where we also have, in fact, a shortage of people qualified to do that work. And as you can see from this result, first place, South Korea, followed by Germany, followed by Singapore. The United States, where I currently live, is in 9th position. But if you read the report, there's no reason to feel good about this because, in fact, all countries were determined to be in a fairly unready state. And though even, for example, South Korea has a great ecosystem for driving innovation, has done a lot in terms of retraining workers, it has a system that gears up its workers primarily for universities, not for some of the more technical blue-collar jobs that we need for tomorrow. In Germany, there's a much better system for the vocational training, but very little in terms of spurring the innovation ecosystem that's required. And then in Singapore, they have a very innovative system whereby they give workers training credits so they can apply those credits to get the kind of skills they need to adapt to the changes in the workforce. So fundamentally, as a society, we don't appear to be overly well prepared for the nature of these changes. So what are these changes? And what I'm going to describe to you is the impact of two very innovative technologies. One you've already heard quite a bit around, artificial intelligence. The second, the concept of a digital twin and how that changes the jobs in the industrial sector. So if we think about manufacturing, and manufacturing even today remains a very large percentage of the jobs that exist in a modern economy, the manufacturing sector is under threat. When manufacturers are asked, what do you think the opportunity is for the fourth industrial revolution? The number one answer they provide is it'll help us reduce cost. The other reason why they like it is because they think about having greater agility. And what we see across the world is the cycle time to make products is being compressed. Consumers are global. They see trends. They want to take advantage of the new trends emerging. They want to buy those products today. So some of the companies, for example, are really stepping up their agility in response, such as, for example, Zara, headquartered in Spain. They can get ideas from the drawing board to the stores within 3 weeks, which is significantly faster than the many, many months that it takes most of their competitors. But the other thing that people now crave is individuality. The time of any color as long as it's black is no longer really interesting. People want to have it the way they want it, and they want it now. And lastly, we've seen a decline in productivity in the manufacturing sector, which is a real concern. It used to be, for decades, up until about the year 2000, that manufacturing productivity was increasing by 4% a year. Now it's effectively zero. If productivity does not increase, wages will stagnate. Stagnating wages will mean that, as you saw from Paul's earlier slide, people with higher education will probably thrive, whereas the middle class will get eroded. The blue-collar jobs that used to pay a reasonable wage will no longer do that. As a society, we can't afford to let that happen. And I think overall manufacturing is seeing that there is no option for inaction. I would say that much of the technology wave, the internet, the web, which completely transformed banking and telecommunications and the telecommunication or technology sector, didn't really affect manufacturing, but it will now. And that's primarily because consumers are much more powerful, they're in control, they want these changes. We also are being subject increasingly to regulation impact in terms of the use of, for example, specific conflict minerals or where those raw materials come from is an increasing interesting area, and people want to know, where does your supply chain extend to? The infrastructure is also aging. In the US, where I live today, the average age of an oil and gas pipeline is 50 years old, which is just about its useful life. And the workforce. We heard that earlier today from Dirk from Airbus. 40% of his workers are going to retire in the next 10 years. So we see that manufacturing is changing. And it's changing primarily because the information technology being applied means that the factory of the future is not this static machine that cannot be changed. It consists of robots, 3D printers, CNC machines, which can be reprogrammed at will. They can adapt. They can be reconfigured to make lots of new things. We're also seeing the advent of many new technologies. Manufacturing has been a laggard in technology that is now about to change. Augmented reality goggles are commonplace. In my own company, we have 40 different projects underway to allow workers to do the jobs of many individual specialists by donning these goggles and being guided to certain tasks. We're also experimenting with blockchain technologies to establish a chain of custody of raw materials and the supply chain. And increasingly, these digital tools allow us to design products with our customers, as opposed to in a traditional approach where customers give you feedback and then you try to respond to that and give them the product that you think they want. And lastly, all of these technologies are increasingly connected. These robots, smart machines, they're all increasingly connected to a network and to the internet. And as a result, cybersecurity is becoming a #1 issue. Because more and more, what we're seeing is cyber threats directed against industrial systems, not only the consumer technologies. And this is actually paradoxically a source of growth in jobs, Because in Europe alone, in the next couple of years, it's predicted there will be a shortage of 350,000 cyber professionals. So we think that the vision of the factory of tomorrow is that it remains digital end-to-end. We will design products digitally. We will also then be digitally commissioning them, which is, most people don't realize, when you actually want to assemble robots and put them into a factory, for example, it can take up to a year to configure a new assembly line. With digital tools, we can do that in half the time. And then lastly, as all of these products are increasingly smart and capable, we see the advent of new kinds of jobs. Jobs which require teleoperators, people managing and monitoring this equipment from a distance. And in fact, this is where this technology of a digital twin starts to manifest itself. And I know this is a bit small from the back, but let me explain. Increasingly, what we will see is people will design or plan for a project using digital tools. That's 3D layouts, CAD/CAM tools, for example. They will then use digital project software to build it in real time, collaboratively with various suppliers and partners. Then they will operate this equipment, meaning they will monitor it remotely for certain attributes, making sure that it's not going to fail, so that you can proactively maintain it. And then lastly, you can optimize, you can tune that performance of that machine, and all of that by having a digital simulation of what that actual physical machine and environment looks like. And this leads to all kinds of really interesting ways in which we can move jobs around. And what you see here on your left-hand side is one example of how we've taken an oil rig, which traditionally sits at the surface of the sea, and we have dropped that to the seabed. So now it's completely immune to storms and waves and all kinds of things. And this particular platform you see here is 3,000 meters below the level of the sea, sitting at the North Sea, right on the ocean floor. But of course, as you can well imagine, there can be no people there. So all of the interventions on that equipment have to be done on land, remotely. And we do that today. The other example is autonomous vessels. So while there may be a nice autonomous car outside, we think that the future is to make all forms of transportation autonomous. And one of the first autonomous ships has been enabled in Helsinki. So between the port of Helsinki and a nearby island, we have a capability to essentially pilot that ship remotely. And this is allowing humans to be on the loop, able to intervene and deal with specific corner cases. But to do that, we have to create more capable people. Because if you think back to over 100 years ago, we had teleoperators. We had people operating machinery, but they would be looking at a series of dials or displays of maybe 100 individual devices. That's the first control room. And then, as we digitized, we went to computer screens, able to manage thousands of devices. But today, some of our biggest installations, for example, a refinery in Saudi Arabia, we have over 150,000 connected devices. And clearly, human beings, we're not able to remember numbers, but we're also not very good at dealing with too many inputs. So we have to scale the people. We have to augment their cognitive capabilities with AI technology. And the AI technology will deal with the exceptions. And rather than the blonde robot you saw earlier, here are some of the ones that are actually in deployment today to help scale the people. Because what the robots do is they take this digital twin, the map they have of the physical world, and use that to navigate and to interact with the physical. So for example, we have our data center sheriff, which can install computers, remove power supplies, replace storage units in these mega cloud data centers, where there's essentially a lights-out operation, and this can happen without anybody having to actually walk through these aisles. Or the motor crawler, which goes inside of our large transformers, or motors rather, and can actually fit in the space between the coil and the actual outer housing. It can inspect whether or not that motor needs maintenance. A similar concept is the transformer diver. Transformers or electrical transformers are typically sitting inside of a bath of mineral oil, and if you want to do maintenance, you have to remove all of this oil and then eventually put it back. Instead, we can drop this little autonomous robot inside, and it has cameras and sensors, and we can pilot it inside. So this is where a human being actually navigates and controls the robot. And the last one is a special methane sensing robot which can sniff out any leaks that might occur in oil and gas pipelines, for example. So we think that ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to see human beings extended with AI. And I'm not talking about brain implants. I'm talking about how certain tasks people are great at, such as looking at intuition, creativity, expertise. We're clearly not good at doing math, as we saw earlier today. The machines are much better at that, but they're not good at intuition, context, or connecting the dots thanks to experience. And we think the ideal combination is to combine the two. And that's why we think in the future, that's what we'll see. Thank you very much. Yep, thank you. Okay, perfect.
Next up, we have a panel on the future of work and innovation for education. Your moderator would be Mr. Guido van Nispen. He is active in social enterprise environments as those offer the opportunity to put real change into action in a sustainable way while is creating a solid business. Thanks to staying awake and active in the digital era, he holds insight at the frontiers of finance, media, and technology developments and knows how to spot talent. A round of applause for Mr. Guido van Nispen.
Good afternoon. Everybody had lunch, so everybody is fully awake for an amazing session. And before I do the introduction, I would like to call up as amazing panel members. The first one is Ms. Rusinova. Please join me on stage. Give her a warm welcome, because it's challenging here on this stage. Ms. Rusinova is Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Policy here in Bulgaria. Take this one. Take the next. Then please join me, Mr. Jerry Yang, General Partner of the Hardware Club from Paris. And a warm applause. Followed by another Guido, the Guido you just saw giving an amazing introduction onto this panel. Guido Jouret, the Chief Digital Officer of ABB. Please join me. Followed by Ms. Maroop. She's the Director of UNESCO's International Bureau of Education. And finally, we should have exactly enough chairs, but maybe even one too many. Mr. Yonov Agat, the Deputy Director General of the World Trade Organization. Please join me on stage as well. I do a short introduction, and then we'll try with this amazing panel to get through as many of the elements we're trying to discuss here as possible. So if I have the slides, please. Are they up? Yeah. So a brief introduction by myself. I'm the publisher of a Silicon Valley think tank chaired by Vint Cerf, one of the inventors of the internet, called Innovation for Jobs, I4J. And we strongly believe in a people-centered economy, especially in these digital days. And is it switching now? No? Can you move to the next slide, please? This one. There we go. So what we're trying to do is making sure that we create a society where these enormous developments in technology we have been discussing here and you will be discussing here, and especially artificial intelligence, will be used to improve the working lives of people. You know, if we want to make sure that we all have a good future, we should be doing that. And we should be using that technology to make sure that all the capacities and wants you have as an employee will be met. And why is that so relevant? I have a few quotes here from Kai-Fu Lee, and if you didn't read his book, I would really make sure you do. He wrote a book called AI Superpowers, and he says, AI is here to come, and the changes will be immense, and we will be discussing that. And we need to find things, as Guido just mentioned, that will do new things, otherwise we will have big issues. And also we have to reinvent education, because lifelong learning will be very important. He finalized, he said, these are challenging times, and it's up to us what we do. So I'm very happy that we have a great panel and so many people here in the room to discuss this topic. Because this is my son, and I'm always very proud of him, of course, but unless he makes a home run early on in his career, he probably will have a 50-year work horizon, which is a very long time. And it's very unlikely that he will spend that 50 years working horizon with one company. So unless we start focusing on the individual and their education, we will have a very tough time ahead. So without further ado, I would like to go to this amazing panel. And the first question I would like to ask them is, introduce yourself, because I think people would really like to know where you come from and what your focus points are. And secondly, how do you see the future of work in this 21st century developing? Can I start here?
Thank you. My name is Zornica Rusinova. I'm the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy of Bulgaria. And the future of work is one of the big challenges in our domain of work in the last years and in the coming years. In the 14th century, when the printing machine was found, all people were afraid that the monks would become jobless. So when we talk about future of work, we should talk more about challenges and how we can meet challenges, how we can make lifelong learning systems and universities and school teach us the skills, the profession and knowledges that we need for the future. Only 10% of the children that enter school now would work the profession that is existing now. So the dynamics is big. The population of Europe is different. Now we have about 9 million people in Europe who has never used internet. So when we talk about future of work, we should adapt our systems in order to reflect first the very quickly and fastly growing IT sector. In Bulgaria, our forecasts say that every year during the next 15 years, the IT sector would grow with 3%. So we should have enough workforce and young people who are adapted and want to start a job in the IT sector. On the other hand, there is almost no profession that doesn't need any IT skills. And the big challenge in the domain of the social policy for the digitalization is more and more we talk now about social inclusion because of lack of digital skills. So we have a lot of challenges in front of us. European legislation in the sphere of work is complicated, and it's a big challenge for us to find new solutions for the new forms of work. Between 12 and 50% of the population in Europe work free time or from home, so we should find new solutions how to keep the decent places of work, how to keep people happy with what they do.
Thank you. Mr. Yang, can you share your views?
Yeah, so my name is Jerry Yen. I'm the general partner of Huawei Club. We're a VC firm based in Paris. They invest in early stage full stack startups. You might find that name kind of familiar because it's the same name as the co-founder of Yahoo. But obviously, other than that, we share the same name. I'm also from Taiwan. He's from Taiwan as well. There's nothing else that's similar. So I'm the only VC on the panel here. I think most of the gentlemen and the ladies here would probably take a top-down approach, seeing how you can design a society. As a VC, I see things differently, right? So many of you here have children that are going through education. You're probably worried about that. As a VC, we see things as, I mean, if I take you back to like 10,000 or 20,000 years ago, when we human beings evolved into Homo sapiens. And so every day you wake up, you face a new day and you don't have food and you have to go out and find food. So every day is a survival. It's a reset every day. And that's how our body and our brain were evolving into. That's what we are. And I think in the modern society, we sort of lost that. So my advice for all of you that have children that are going through education is that if you can imbue that sort of survivorship, sort of like mentality, a little bit of entrepreneurship in that every day is a new day. There's nothing that is given to you, even if you finish education at Stanford or if you finish education at Harvard. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the same thing going over the next 20 or 30 years. Then I think everything will be fine, whatever they study or learn in the future.
Thank you. Guido, you already said a lot in your keynote, but maybe
So,
do you want to add something?
maybe just to add a little bit about the nature of education, because I didn't really cover that in my talk. But I think what's fundamentally changing is that the things we used to value, which is knowledge, is now highly commoditized. What we really value is problem solving, empathy, working with other people, because that's something which is very difficult to imagine computers doing. Because while I think we talk a lot about the impact of AI, I don't want to underestimate it, and I do like Kai-Feng's book, but today AI is really good at task automation, so really good at one thing, right? So the AI that learns how to play Go doesn't know how to drive a car, so it's very optimized as one thing. But the combination of people and AI is powerful, but it also means that the things we traditionally do in what I would call rote education, which is learning knowledge, learning facts, that's almost irrelevant in today's world. We can actually do much better by just relying on the AI to find us the facts. What the AI will not be able to do necessarily is then apply it, and that's where I think Jerry's going about how do you find ways in which to solve problems, how do you creatively apply innovation to a solution space. Those things, at least for quite some time, I think are beyond the reach of AI, and that's where we still need people, but we need to teach those skills early on.
Thank you. Ms. Moreau.
Well, let me pick it from where my colleague leaves it and say that the future of work is exciting as well as sometimes scary. It's exciting because of the open opportunities that are coming to every person in this world, and where the physical boundaries do not matter that much anymore because people can work across boundaries facilitated by technology. The future of work is also going to fuel higher demand for sophisticated competences, because the challenges we face in the 21st century and the products we have to produce in the 21st century are far much more finessed, sophisticated, personalized, and require multiple perspectives, multiple disciplines to come together to bear, and multiple competences. So the future of work is going to demand collaboration if we want to solve the challenges that we face, but also to produce outputs that are responsive. But just to pick it, but this doesn't make knowledge less relevant. It actually means that people are going to need to master the knowledge very deeply enough to be able to apply it in different contexts that change very fast. And yes, I agree, it's beyond just the mastery of knowledge and skills and values and all that, but it's more about what we are able to do with what we have learned, and this requires much deeper understanding and mastery. Because of the rapid pace of change, the future of